Alright, welcome back guys. This is part 2 of the Python tutorial. And we're just going to be going over a brief our introduction to the idle, the command line interpreter, which is this lovely thing you see in front of you. The first thing you can actually do with idle is you can use Python as a calculator. So if I type in 2 plus 2, I get 4. And it'll take about any standard math operator I type in. I can do 90 minus 80 and I can get 10. I can do 80 minus 90, get negative 10. I can do 8 divided by 5 and get 1.6. And then I can, of course, do 8 times 5 and get 40. So as you can see, Python handles your standard math operators just like you would expect them to work, which is very good because it's very intuitive. So if any of you have programmed in other languages, especially a lot of the C-based languages because of the way that they do their typecasting, which we'll discuss more about what that is later, a lot of the times they will do what's called floor division. And what floor division is that you round down. So if you've got 40.9999999, it's not 41, it's 40 with floor division. So how do you perform floor division in Python? Floor division is actually quite easy in Python. You just use a double divided by sign. So 4 floor divide 5 is 0. 5 floor divide 4 is 1. Now, floor division has a counterpart operator called modulus. And the reason I say it's a counterpart operator is because it's kind of doing the other thing that's commonly done with floor division. See, most people, when they hear floor division, they don't exactly know what it is right away. But the thing is, floor division was the first type of division you learned how to do. Way back in elementary school, I'm sure you learned how to do division and take the remainder. That is floor division. The counterpart is getting the remainder from it. So how do I obtain the remainder? I use the operator called modulus. It's a percent sign. So 4 modulus 5 is 4. 5 modulus 4 is 1. So what's actually going on here is, if you can remember way back from when you were in elementary school, when you would take division of something, you would go, okay, how many times does 5 go into 4? Our 5 goes into 4 0 times. So my remainder is 4. All the way around. How many times does 4 go into 5? 4 goes into 5. It goes in 1 time. And you have a remainder of 1. Now that you have that, you can perform remainder division, which is very useful. There'll be lots of times where we use modulus in programs later on. So the next thing that we're going to cover is order of operations. It works the same way it works on paper, PEMDAS. So, if I type in 8 times 4 plus 3, I get 35. Now, obviously, due to standard order of operations, it's going to be the same. However, if I move my parentheses over, I'm going to get 56. So PEMDAS is still important. You need to pay attention to your order of operations. Otherwise, you're going to end up with not what you were trying to obtain. There is one more operator that you will use quite a bit, and that is the power operator. In this case, it is just double multiply. So 9 to the power of 2, or 9 squared, is 81. 4 cubed is 64. These are those are pretty much your standard operators. Or they're going to be subtract, divide, floor divide, multiply, modulus, and power. As long as you can remember those 5 operators, you can essentially do just about anything in standard arithmetic math. There is other things that you can do with math that we'll get into later when we're discussing the math module, and I'll explain more about what that is when we actually get to that point. But until then, we're going to be discussing variables. What is a variable? I'm sure you remember from algebra that a variable is something that has a variable value depending on the instance in which it's being used. The most common variable, of course, was x. Now, if I just try typing out x, it's going to tell me the name x is not defined. Basically, what it's telling me is there's no value in x. I can't give you anything because there's nothing in it. So I need to put something into it. So how do you put something in it? You tell it to equal something. So I'm going to say x equals 5. And it just seemed to did nothing. But now when I type out x, it's going to tell me x equals 5. So, one thing that's to be noted is a single equal sign is called the assign operator. And it always assigns the value on the right into the variable on the left. And that is very important to note. If I try going 1 equals y, it's going to return me can't assign to a literal. Because 1 is a literal value. It has its own value. You can't redefine 1. It's not even going to bother checking if y is or contains anything because I'm trying to assign something to something that already has a permanent value. It's a constant value. Anyway, variables work just like normal numbers. So I can go x times 5 and I get 25. X to the power of 5 and I get 3,125. So literally speaking, it's just taking whatever has been stored in x and it says, okay, what is an x? 5 is an x. 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, what's an x? 5. 5 to the power of 5 is 3,125. X divided by 5 is 1.0. X floor divided by 5 is 1. X modulus 5 is 0. Hopefully you guys get the idea of how variables kind of work. Basically, you can store any variable or any number you want in a variable, and you can call it back later. However, it should be noted that math notations like x2 do not work. The reason this is because it thinks you're trying to define a variable. Because as long as the first character in it is a letter, Python allows you to assign just about anything as a variable. There are a few characters you can't use, and we'll get to what they are and why you can't use them later. But in the meantime, that's all the time I've got for for the second Python tutorial. And the next Python tutorial, we're going to be covering strings, and maybe if we have enough time, we might get to lists. But until then, see ya.